Hi, I'm Chris Wilson. As you probably know, I'm a huge Diablo II fan, to the extent that I co-created Path of Exile as an homage to it. Well, last week, Blizzard shadow dropped a new character class in Diablo II for the first time in 25 years, in an update called Reign of the Warlock. This is a unique situation for me, because it's the intersection of my lifelong love for Diablo II and my career, where I had to design, scope out, and release almost 40 expansion updates to a live-action RPG.
There it is.
There's a lot of feedback online about Reign of the Warlock, and I want to present my...
RP gives good hot takes. You gotta understand, guys. So, for those of you guys who don't understand Chris Wilson, he was like the biggest D2 Andy. Complete D2 freak. D2 out the wazoo. That's his whole life, was playing D2 with the boys. D2, 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 D2. Okay? And then, basically, D3 was complete dog shit. Right? They didn't know about D4. And like, yo, I'm gonna make the true D2 expansion. Like, he's basically the D2 div. He effectively made Diablo the real Diablo 3. That's what Path of Exile is just Diablo 3, like what it should have been. Right, let's not get it twisted. So he effectively is like the authoritative dev on how to make new D2 classes, because that's all Path of Exile was just making D2 classes, but on roids. So now I wonder what he thinks about the actual D2 update from, dogshit Blizzard. He's probably going to be super nice though, because like he's a nice guy, and then he's also in the industry, and it's probably not a good thing to be like, yo, that's fucking dog shit.
Personal point of view on it. I want to talk about some of the decisions the developers likely faced, the various choices they had available, and the consequences of those choices. I've got nothing but respect for the Diablo II Resurrected team at Blizzard, who are pushing hard to bring us new content for the game that we love. They may watch this video, so I want to make it clear, I've been having a great time in Reign of the Warlock so far. And I'm just trying to provide a fellow developer's perspective on what it's like trying to thread the needle on an update like this. I should make it clear that I am not affiliated with Blizzard, and these opinions are my own. While some people on Reddit may have decided that the Chris Wilson on the Diablo team is the same person as me, that's actually not the case.
He's black.
Just a popular build in this meta. When working on changes to Diablo 2, you need to be so careful. This is a very special game. It launched the entire action RPG genre. It feels like wherever I go in life, I can ask someone if they've played Diablo 2 before, and they not only say yes, but have incredibly fond memories of playing it as a kid, a teenager, or while at university.
Bro, my auntie knew what Diablo was, because I was trying to explain to her what Path of Exile was, and I was like, do you know what Diablo is? My auntie, yesterday, around my house, who's like 70 or some shit. No. Yeah, like she's old, not super old, but she knew a Diablo.
Diablo 2 is a common shared memory among all of us, and that's why it must be treated with the utmost care. And it's very clear that the D2R team does deeply care about this. This is most clear when you see how they have partitioned off the changes into a new era that you can choose on a per-character basis. If at any point a change is made that hurts the game, players still have the original pre-Reign of the Warlock era of Diablo II Resurrected available to enjoy forever. I've seen people comment that various quality of life improvements in Reign of the Warlock are pay-gated behind the purchase of this update. I suspect that the intent wasn't about selling more copies, but about preserving a museum piece baseline. To me, those features being only available in the new era is the ultimate sign of respect to the original game.
Yeah.
The team seems fully aware of the care that needs to be taken around this important piece of gaming history, and are treating it with the respect that it deserves. So, Reign of the Warlock includes a new character class, but doesn't include substantial new exploration content, like a new act, for example. I think this may actually be a strategic mistake. Now, it may sound a bit rich of me to just wave my hand and inflict the expectation of dozens of developer years of work on their team.
Just do an act.
I'm fully aware of how much effort it takes to produce an entirely new act for an action RPG. It would take a year plus of development and millions of dollars. But I feel that this would have very much paid for itself several times over. I suspect the most likely
Blizzard guys in the suits are like, what? What's this other Chris Wilson saying? Money? Did he say money?
Reason that this update didn't contain a new act is the extra year of development would push it out.
They're like, wait, can't we just add in like a $2,000 worth of development of Diablo model, and we'll make like another fucking 15 million? Yeah, just do that. Can we try get this Diablo 2 on mobiles? Is that possible? Get some RMT in there.
From being able to be released this month, where Blizzard is celebrating the 35th anniversary of the company, the 30th anniversary of the Diablo franchise, and doing the marketing for its Diablo 4 expansion. It may not have been possible, due to this timing, for them to consider the dramatic increase in scope that a new act would entail for this update. My issue with this update is that without an act, it essentially boils down to a new character class, some quality of life features, and some new endgame content. But the quality of life features and endgame content are only really relevant for enfranchised players who are actively playing and will benefit from them. Most people don't re-engage with a game just because it now has a material stash tab or an Uber variation of
the if they, like, he's totally right. I saw the Reign of the Warlock thing. I was like, okay, it's the same game, but like with the Warlock, I decided, I'm not going to play it. Whereas if they said, yo, entire new act with a new in-game Diablo 2 boss, Well, then I'm gonna like, I gotta log in and try that. I'm gonna log in and try that. I gotta get to that. I gotta kill that so I can say I beat D2, the DLC. I would. It's one of those things where he's just correct.
Fight. They want new experiences from it. A new act would have pretty much guaranteed that everyone who had a chance of re-engaging with Diablo 2 would have purchased and played the update. Without new exploration content, it's down to the Warlock to sell the update. But I have some concerns with one of the aspects of how the Warlock was showcased at its announcement. Several of my friends were hyped by the announcement stream and then immediately found and watched additional videos that showcased late-game Warlock gameplay using pinnacle runewords like Enigma. Getting to see the character dominate the game's hardest content took away some of their desire to play. This is something that I learned the hard way with Path of Exile. You want to show enough to interest people, but if you show everything, some people may skip playing that update entirely because they've seen it all already.
You gotta let the players explore that and find that out. You know what I'm saying? You gotta just confirm it works in QA testing, and then just show us like a shit build. And it's better if it's slow as well, because you can just see how the mechanics work and stuff. You can just see the ability. When it's 6 length with crazy gear, you quite presses a button, the whole screen explodes. Like, what does that even show you?
Recommendation is to show the fantasy of the character and a fair demonstration of its abilities, but to try as hard as possible to encourage players to discover new endgame builds and their rewards by themselves. Something interesting to consider with the Warlock is that it probably wasn't the result of someone sitting down and asking what class would be best to add to Diablo 2. It was simultaneously announced for Diablo 4, Diablo Immortal, and Diablo 2. Because Diablo 4 is Blizzard's current flagship Diablo product and is generating a lot more money than Diablo 2, it's very likely that the priority was finding a class that fit in perfectly with Diablo 4 and could essentially be ported to the other two games for marketing benefit. As someone who cares
Dude, Diablo 2 is just a cum rag for Blizzard to jizz into, okay? They're just like, let's farm this nostalgia as much as we possibly can to get as much money as we can. That's a dude, that's what D2 is. They just they bust into that thing, and it's like, hopefully we get a few dollars out of it. Whatever, who gives a fuck? Let's keep those D2 freaks happy, and then we'll keep the pay piggy rolling. All right, min-max that Diablo Immortal game, and min-max the D4 game, baby.
Deeply about every change to Diablo 2 being in its absolute best interest. The idea of a class being added...
If you think D2 is a priority of Blizzard, you are unhinged. The guys in chat are implying that. You're saying, I hate D2. I'm telling you the reality is. The reality is this. They saw people playing D2. They saw, like, WoW Classic Plus or Classic WoW Classic was popping off super hard. And like, wait, can we just do the same shit but for Diablo? Will these retailers really buy the same game again? No way. And then they paid that fucking another company that wasn't Blizzard to basically remaster the old game. Okay? To print money. That's why they did it. It wasn't some passion project. It's just it's a money farm. That's all.
Because it was in Diablo 4 did upset me a little.
Yep, I've watched now too. True.
Despite this, I think the Warlock class itself is cool. Thematically, I don't have any concerns with it. It fits in with the world well and is fun to play. I feel that the D2R team did a great job putting a D2 spin on the class. Things like binding demons really feel like Diablo 2 concepts, similar to Iron Golem and Revive, and very likely wouldn't be the way the class works in other Diablo games, which I appreciate. However, the Warlock was very clearly designed with modern action RPG sensibilities and decades of genre experience behind the team. As a result, it doesn't really have many bad skills, and that makes it stand out when compared to Diablo 2's other 7 classes. This class is a strong spellcaster, a strong summoner, and is strong at both ranged and melee combat.
What the fuck?
It even has a teleport.
Jesus
it feels like it has been
Christ.
designed to appeal to everyone.
It does everything.
And because of that, it doesn't really feel like an actual Diablo 2 character class. At the time of recording this, which is before any nerfs were done to the Warlock, its power level is pretty high. People are even saying that the Spectral Throw build is stronger than a Mosaic Assassin. This is one of the difficulties when designing a new character class in isolation.
That's not possible to be stronger than a Mosaic Assassin, bro. You can't. What?
For a game. Developers don't want to risk undershooting.
Is a Mosaic Assassin good, Chant? Is that a good build? Is that a good build? Is that a good build? Is that the strongest build? It's God tier.
Shooting its power level and having people hate it on release. So it's very tempting to aim a bit high with the power level. Unfortunately, release day is when people have had the least time to actually solve the puzzle of boosting its power using other game elements. So if it feels punchy on release day to give people a positive first impression, then it's probably really broken once built correctly a few weeks later.
Dude, Blizzard doesn't give a fuck. They're just like, make sure, they just want to, they're like, hey, release it strong as fuck, so it sounds OP as fuck, and everyone talks about how it's OP as fuck, so then they buy as many copies as possible, and then we'll nerf it once everyone stops playing. That's, let's not get it twisted. That's that's the Blizzard thought. Bro, they had a saying, never nerf, always buff. That was their saying. I'm not even kidding. This is what they did in D3. They said we never want people to feel weaker than they felt when they last logged into the character, so we only ever buff. So if there's a character that's, overperforming, rather than nerf it, they just buff all the other classes to that power. And that's what they kept doing, to the point where we had characters that had multipliers like 64,000% more damage.
Blizzard faces a difficult problem here.
Terrible, by the way. Awful design. Ass.
Because one group of players rightly doesn't like it when certain builds are massively more powerful than other builds, as it makes them mandatory for competitive players to play. Another group of players really hates the idea of their fun being ruined by nerfs. They like a powerful character. So far, the D2R team has been very careful with nerfs, which is sensible, but they're going to have to take a stance on the Warlock soon. Some people have suggested buffing the legacy classes to be as powerful as the Warlock, but this runs the risk of kicking off a live service power creep cycle, where class power gets raised, making the game feel really easy, so new harder content is added, and then a new update comes out with even more power that is able to dominate that content, and the cycle repeats. This is something that Diablo II hasn't had to deal with since version 1.10 in 2003, but if it's going to start receiving continued updates, then the developers...
How the fuck are people still playing that game, bro? That's crazy. Like, no updates since 2003, and motherfuckers are still playing. That's crazy. Dude, every time I see Mr. Lima stream, and he's doing like a guided playthrough of some fucking barbarian throw build or some shit. I'm like, how the fuck does he do that every day? He like logs in. Bro, I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't understand. I do not have that. Don't wrong. I understand 100%ing a game. I understand going through D2, fucking beating the game on every single class, getting all characters, best gear, min-maxed, completionist, every boss. I understand that. That makes sense to me. I understand seasons and things for a certain amount of time with limited updates, but, you know, whatever. I don't understand. It's literally the same for 23 years or some shit, and they still, like, I'm going to make a new character in Diablo 2 today. I'm going to start again on Diablo 2 again. I'm going to do it. It's like, what? Well, Zenith, I've not beaten the bosses in Zenith, so it makes sense. Guess what happens, chat, when I kill all the bosses? Guess what happens? I will stop playing Zenith. I will stop playing Terraria till there's another update. I will not play it again. The only time I will play it again is I will wait multiple years, and then maybe they'll do some new challenge. I would not then just be like, let me just start again and just do Zenith again. And let's, guys, I just beat Zenith. Let's beat Zenith again. Guys, I beat Zenith. Let's do Zenith. I'm just not gonna do that, right?
You'll need to be very mindful of it. One thing that was immediately disappointing to me was that Reign of the Warlock removes the ability to switch to legacy graphics mode. One of the coolest things about Diablo II Resurrected is that it allows you to toggle between the new remastered graphics and the original legacy graphics. While its legacy mode somehow feels and looks a bit worse than the original game did, it is very interesting being able to see how faithful yet augmented the remastered graphics are, side by side with the original. The original game used a 2D engine that at every frame of every animation, at every angle, rendered out as separate 2D sprites. My understanding is that this was achieved by some complicated...
Bro, I remember having to get these sprites on my ass game, dude. Ugh.
Custom tooling.
Artwork, bro. Where do you get artists from? How do you get artists to make artwork for you, bro?
Where they rendered out large sprite sheets from 3D Studio Max. This was made even more complex by the presence of attachments like helmets or weapons that had to be layered onto the characters or monsters correctly. Properly recreating this 25-year-old pipeline and getting it to generate compatible sprite sheets would be a lot of work. A lot of work. Allegedly, when D2R launched in China, it didn't include the legacy graphics option. This is likely because the art required culturalization changes, and they were unable to easily apply those changes to the old graphics.
Yeah.
This suspicion was basically confirmed when Reign of the Warlock launched without legacy graphics support either. Updating the old art, for the small percentage of users who occasionally flick to it, would be an immense undertaking and probably not worth the effort from a commercial point of view.
It makes sense, right? If you can just do it with a 3D engine, then you design one asset and then it gets good. It's not like you need to render that sprite in like 15 different ways. You know, you just manipulate it, move it around a bit, and you're good to go.
While I would absolutely love to see how the Warlock would look with 2000-era graphics, I don't blame them for removing the legacy graphics option. At least it's still available in the original pre-Reign of the Warlock era of D2R. This is why separating the game into eras actually makes sense. The current era is not held back by having to conform to the technical requirements of the original 2D engine. So while I was disappointed by this omission, I understand it and I'm hopeful that it lets them really flex their muscles with more graphical improvements and later updates. Honestly, I found the announcement of Reign of the Warlock quite surreal. Seeing a few features we designed for Path of Exile come full circle back into Diablo 2 felt like a huge honor, regardless of where the inspiration was actually from. It made me feel that I indirectly contributed a little bit back to my favorite game.
I mean, yeah, your entire game was predicated off D2. It's totally fine if they take some shit from D2. I mean, really. He's saying he basically made it. It is what it is. He made it. No, but the thing is, his entire game is like D2 D2 but reborn, right? Let's not get it twisted. That's part of it is, so it doesn't really matter. Who cares? It's all a big orgy, isn't it? All the ARPG top down, like they all are just a big. They all come swap ideas like crazy and take whatever's. If someone comes up with a new idea that's really good, that one guy will take it, and it is what it is. It's good. I much prefer it that way. It creates an arms race if they're trying to make the best game possible.
If you enjoyed this video, please like it and consider subscribing. It helps a lot.
Let me like
Thanks
the video.
very much, and see you next time.
Already subscribed, baby. Is the bell on? All, bro. Give me the bell is set to all, bro. Gonna be honest, was pretty like very obviously he's trying to be super diplomatic, so he's not being very harsh. But he's not a very harsh guy anyway. But he's very very tepid takes, very lukewarm takes. It's one of these things where I feel like he probably would. Yeah, but fair enough though. He's creating a new company, and you don't want to be like, Blizzard's fucking dog shit. And he didn't even say that, by the way. He just said, yeah, he would have done some things differently, basically.